Order, Commission. Order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does this mean that we're going to have a phone conference?
We have not been requested to hook up anybody.
We'll now have approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to modify the agenda and request the removal of items number 4 and number 5.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
And I move to approve the agenda with those corrections.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. We'll start off tonight with public comment. Anyone wishing to tell us what they think? Seeing none, we'll start with action items. Number 1, Resolution 13-2014.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 13-2014, the appointment of Budget Committee members.
Second.
Carol.
Good evening. This evening I'm bringing to you, we have 2 vacancies on the Budget Committee. One of them was due to the appointment of Commissioner McNeil to the Board of Commissioners, so that is a 2-year term. We also have a full 3-year term due to Pat Russell's 3-year term ending. We could actually appoint both of these positions as 3-year terms. We would still have our regular rotation in place, so we don't have to do one as a 2-year and one as a 3-year. So if both of our applicants are okay with that, then the board can certainly choose to do that, or you can do a 2-year and a 3-year term. We do have 2 applicants. I believe there was information in your packet. One of them is Pat Russell, who has served on our budget committee in the past. He's served 2 terms and has volunteered to continue on with us for another term. And the other one is William Glanis. And so you have the information about them in front of you, and 2 openings and 2 applicants. I think that's pretty good.
You want the applicants wish to give a campaign speech?
That goes thumbs up. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to modify the motion and then make it for 2 3-year terms.
Second.
That's okay.
2 3-year terms?
Yes.
Instead of
3 years.
2 and a 3?
Yes, sir.
Can we do that, Carol?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor will say aye when we have the roll call. Those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberstone?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Silva?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 2, ordinance 02-2013. Second reading.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve ordinance 02-2013, approving the Board Code of Conduct.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion?
Just like to make one public comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman. We expect professional behavior out of our staff at all times, and they have a code that they are required to follow, and I think it's appropriate that the board also have a code of conduct that they are required to follow in the same spirit as our staff do. That's all I have to say.
I'd just like to say that in the past we've had problems on the board, but we're quickly solving those problems, and I don't think we need a book code of conduct. Any more comments? Clerk, call the roll. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Commissioner Humberstone?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Silva?
No.
Motion carries 3-1.
Number 3, resolution 14-2014. To amendments to the 190 agreement.
This is a,
This,
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve Resolution 14-2014, approving the restated and amendment intergovernmental cooperative agreement with Sunrise Water Authority.
Second.
motion made and second. Mr. Moore.
yes, rather than reading through the entire document, at least 3 of the 4 board members who are here also serve on the commission board, but for the benefit of the audience, I think I probably should communicate what is before the board and what's the reason for it. What we have is that, as you know, the CRW as well as Sunrise Water Authority have entered into what's called a 190 ORS 190 agreement. And the board, both boards have already approved the agreement, but there was some administrative corrections that were needed in order to bring the document current. For example, we refer to the document as a 190 document when really it is a intergovernmental agreement between Sunrise and CRW. And so those corrections have been made. I think that there was a correction to the term biennial. It was misspelled, and so we made the correction on that as well. So these are administrative changes. There are no substantive changes within the document. So unless there's specific questions,
Any more comments? Anyone from the public who wishes to say something? Seeing none, clerk call the roll. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sella?
Aye.
Motion carries
Item number
4-0.
6.
5, okay, item number 6, okay, that's fine.
Pardon?
You were gonna have a reading of the motion first, is that correct, Mr. Chair? On number 6.
We're still item 6.
Yeah.
Okay,
Give me a moment.
go ahead.
Keep up, Ken, come on.
Do I be as fast as I can?
That'll work.
It's on the screen there.
Oh, well. That's always helpful, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize CRW to self-insure as part of the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission.
Second.
Motion made and second. Mr. Moore.
Yes, for the benefit of the audience, again, what this is a motion that essentially, under the 190, it talks about cross indemnification. And after talking with special districts who insures Sunrise, they objected to that provision. And so CRW had a couple of options available to us. One was to go out and find what's called bridge insurance. And under the circumstances, we have one item that is about $15,000 worth of coverage, and the other one with the Ethics Commission is $5,000 worth. Bridge insurance is very expensive. And given what we're talking about, and because CRW has already self-insured in terms of having a risk pool, it seemed that the easiest thing to do would be to also include within that risk pool the ability to self-insure on CRW's side. That seemed to satisfy the special districts, and it satisfied the commission. So this is what the board is doing, is authorizing staff to identify another purpose for those funds.
Any more comments? This is not, it doesn't call for a public comment, but is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Seeing none. Clerk call the roll. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sella?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 7, establish the CIP priorities from the board.
Question of the staff, Mr. President. I have no number 7 in my agenda packet.
It's the one in front of the purple.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you very much.
Sneaky. In the big letter that says 7.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Maybe we do need a code of conduct.
Yes. We need a code of reading. Give me a moment, please. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that the board direct staff to place the Carver Bridge CIP project, the emergency intertie with the City of Portland, and other CIP projects supporting CRW emergency response as top priorities.
Any comments? Anyone from engineering wish to comment?
May I ask the engineer a question? Will this make you happy? Or should I never ask that question?
No, that's a setup. Don't answer that. Don't answer
Change
that
that,
question.
change that would you ask if it's building.
That's probably a better question.
Yeah.
Is it doable?
It does change the priorities that we have set out for the next 5 years in sequence. So some of the Carver Bridge work, some of the Hatton Road that had the south service area was further out in a couple of years. And some of that had to do with available funds. We also have the JTA, and of course the JTA and some of the other work like Tolbert Bridge projects we've talked about have come forward where the Carver Bridge and those type of projects, depending on funding availability, will have to wait. So working very closely with the commissioners, funding availability and those projects, I guess we need to have a work session and really look those over real close, what we can do in what sequence. I do understand that the emergency intertie going north, that would be where our emergency water would probably come from, with the City of Portland. If our river was to have issues, that's a major project. And I understand there's other entities that we will be cooperating with and figure out how that works. One good thing, we do have a 36-inch water line built 90% done from Mather Road Reservoir to the Audie Road Reservoir, which is about 2/3 of the distance through our district, which would be part of the backbone of that system. So does it make me happy? It just rearranges things, and we'll address those. And it really does come down to funding.
I have a question. Do you have any idea when the Carver Bridge is going to be complete?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
I believe that this summer, by the end of the summer, our 18-inch water line and our phase 1 and phase 2 will be done. So we'll be able to wet the water line, test it, and have it available to extend by the end of summer.
That's correct. How long has it been in progress?
I've been here 7 years, coming up on 8. I've been working on it for 6.5
That's all
years.
bad. I thought so.
But, and what was good about it,
Yeah, right. No, I retired before then.
the situation was the county, working with ODOT, was trying to figure out an alignment. What was good about the process was we were brought in fairly early in the system, or in the process of analysis. So that gave us opportunity to, do we want to do something, coordinate with Sunrise, the county, get contracts in place. And then the construction was delayed twice. I'm trying to remember, was it twice?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
And so that just stretched the project out. Otherwise, this would have been done 2 years ago. So, yes, fairly lengthy process, but we've been involved ever since they decided to build the bridge. The alignment was an issue, and then funding from ODOT was pulled, and the county was on their own to pay for that bridge. So it's been,
Well, thank you for the information.
okay.
Third question, Mr. Moore, is, we getting close to an agreement with Sunrise to supply our water to the Carver Bridge?
No, that was gonna be the comment here, is that we, as a result of the 190, one of the things that we'll be doing is negotiating an agreement with Sunrise to, what happens is that we supply Sunrise with water on the front end, then Sunrise carries that water through, but we don't have an agreement to supply the Carver Bridge intertie. And we will have to do that, and Sunrise has agreed to do that. And so the bigger issue is that going to be a water purchase agreement or a wheeling agreement? And so we'll be bringing that before the board so you can approve that. The other thing that I think is connected to this, just this past week, we met with the other water providers at CRWP, and we have an agreement in concept to work collectively on the intertie. And so we'll probably be coming back, even though it's within my signature authority, I think because of the magnitude of the project, it should come back before the board and have an additional discussion. I think we'll be looking at about $25,000 each to supply the funding. The good news is that, you know, the tendency was to go out and let's go hire a consultant. And we said, wait a minute, we probably collectively all have the appropriate bits and pieces of information that would at least help us on the front end to sit down and begin to have those discussions. And Mr. George has agreed to sit down with the water providers when we get to that point and really kind of educate the other water providers on how water moves throughout the basin as best it can. So that'll be another discussion point. And then, this is a long answer to your question, and then the third issue that we have in my management report, you note that I asked for a work session on the 25th of this month. And the purpose of that, we had a couple of commissioners that asked for it, is to really drill down on the entire south side and really have a discussion about how water moves. We will probably include some discussions about the Carver Bridge and so forth, because I think that's very timely. As Mr. George says, we have to look at the budget. And so I think the board would be helped by us at least having a pretty robust conversation about how we do that, what's involved.
Ken?
So, one of the things that I've kind of figured out with all the stuff that's going on is that there's an awful lot of people talking about water that don't have the facts. Just flat don't know what they're talking about, which I think is the root of a lot of our problems. You know, I think there needs to be a very concerted effort from everybody to find out what the facts are. I don't care whether it's the water right, you know, to how the water gets distributed, to who has agreements for what, you know, when those agreements expire, you know, where, you know, what people have for plans. I don't think there's been any kind of a clearinghouse of information to provide the facts to everybody who is making decisions for whatever reason, and it causes everybody problems, and it costs us legal fees when that happens. And I think I would like to make sure our budget committee is educated as best we can and invited to, you know, all of this stuff, because it's, you know, we're talking about, after we get through this process, then we have to figure out how to, like Bob says, pay for it. And so that comes back to rates and those kind of things. And if we don't have the best information, I'm not comfortable dealing with the rates. You got to put one before you put the other. And we have to figure out what our plan is, what we can afford to do, where we can find cooperative places to work with our neighbors in order to stop. I'd never seen the picture of the plumbing. I had no idea there was a pipe B.
Alignment B?
Alignment B, I had no idea that pipe was in the ground. Carol goes, hey, you ever seen this? Nope, never seen this before. You know, so I was absolutely shocked to find out that we had that pipe in the ground,
in order to be able to intertie different systems. And so, I mean, I've been here 9 months and I still didn't know that there was, and so that just points out how little everybody knows about the big picture. And how can you have a conversation that is intelligent and you know, in the favor of the ratepayers if we don't all talking on the same plane? So however we get there, we gotta get there. So, thanks.
I think it would really help if all the parties would tell the truth also, where we're getting there. So let's hope that happens.
Yeah.
I think I've witnessed the same process going on now for about 30 years.
True.
Hopefully we can get there in the next few months.
Yes, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Rather discouraging.
Mr. Moore, you said a work session on the 25th. I had it for the 24th. Are we changing that?
Yeah, the 24th, 25th is what we were proposing.
Oh, it's
Rather than the 24th?
That's correct.
Okay.
Not in addition to. Very good.
So move it over by one then, okay?
Well, and what we haven't established, and we'll get to it, unless you want to talk about it now, is when. I know that Commissioner McNeil, and he and I just kind of talked briefly, 4 o'clock, 4:30, if you factor in traffic, probably 4:30 or 5 would be there.
4:30 is easy for me, yeah.
So we're looking at, rather than 6 p.m., 4:30 p.m.
We can do that, or we can do 6, so it's just a matter of.
Okay,
But I think you have another conflict later in the early evening, don't you?
I'm okay on that day. 25th works.
And then the other thing was, since we are on the subject of the intertying the Carbon Bridge, I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Nick Fish from Portland City Council. He's trying to reach out to the neighbors and reestablish positive working relationships with his neighbors. And I suggested to him that one of our priorities was quite likely to be the Portland intertie, and suggested that he make a call to Mr. Moore, who he knows from other venues. So hopefully something could come from that, and it might be a real opportunity for him also to show other neighbors that he really does mean it when he's trying to reach out and solve some problems. So with that said, I'm done.
Thank you. Is there going to be time after that work session for an executive session?
We were hoping that we can get an executive session sometime next week, given the time issues associated with that need.
Do you
So I
think
guess the
it could
short answer.
happen after that work?
I'm sorry.
Do you think that executive session could happen after that work session?
It could.
Okay.
I think.
He's happy now.
Anything else?
I see him smiling.
I think Bob was holding out on me with that pipe.
Did I ask for public comment? Anyone from the public who wishes to testify? Seeing none, clerk call the roll. Those in favor say aye, those opposed no.
Commissioner Humberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Klein?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Stoll?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
We can move on now to the consent agenda. Do you have anything to say, Carol?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Informational reports, Carol?
Good evening. Here's our financial informational reports for the month of January. The finances are through the month of December. So our accounts receivable aging is $180,000 outstanding at this point. Our ending balance is less than the balance as of November, but that is typical as the October bills generally are higher than the December bills. But we are also a little bit higher than the balance for January 2013, but not significantly. So we've been receiving payments in pretty good stead. The balance as of today was $116,000 prior to any payments that we took in today. Our cash and investment position as of January 31st, our total cash is $8.3 million. That's down a little bit from the December number, but we had some larger CIP bills that came due related to the generator project. So that's moving right along, and payments are being made to keep that going. Here's a graph showing our revenues as compared with prior years, so 5 years of revenues, and you can see that our water revenues are coming in pretty good this year. Our August billing cycle was one of the highest that we've seen in consumption. So that's one of the reasons that our numbers are up there. And here's our expenditures for the same period of time. We've got the personnel services, materials and services, and capital outlay through the month of December, so halfway through the budget year. And here's the comparison year to year, and the percentages that I show here are comparing budget to budget. So you can see that our water sales are at 61.48%. Last year at this time we were at 61.46%, and yet the numbers nearly 500,000 higher, but that's because we had a higher budget this year. So we are tracking along very nicely to meet our budget numbers this year on the revenue side. This is the month that I tell you what has gone on in the second quarter. So here's the second quarter line item review. There are reports in your package that show the specific line items. But we'll start with revenue. We're at 61.7% halfway through the year. So it seems like we're a little ahead, but again, our high billing months are August and October, so we need to do more than 50% at this time on the revenue. But it looks like we will be able to meet the budgeted amount by the end of June. In personnel services, we're tracking right along with the budget. We are just under 50% on both things, salaries and benefits. And in the benefits side, workers' compensation is paid in full. We budgeted the PERS at a higher rate, and after our budget was completed, the legislature reduced the amount that we would have to contribute for PERS contribution for our employees. We have other things, our HRA Viva, which is a benefit for the employees, that's paid in full, but our TriNet tax is only 1 quarter paid, so.
Let me ask you a question. Yes. On the pension PERS, do we pay the full amount that we're required to by law, or do we ever underfund?
No, we pay exactly what, at the percentage that we are required to.
Okay.
The district pays the employer share, and the employees pay the 6%.
So we never underfund the pension fund?
No, when you read things in the paper about PERS being underfunded, that is just, they set a rate typically for 2 years, and sometimes stuff happens in the middle that makes that rate maybe not be enough, or the stock market is not as aggressively positive as they anticipated.
I was more concerned that we did not do something like, for instance, the state of New Jersey did, which was literally underfund their pensions for 10 years. So it wasn't just a market problem, they failed to live up to their contract. We are living up to our contract.
Right, and the state generates the actuarial tables that tell us how much we need to pay, and we pay that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Humberson, one of the things that we did do, we knew that there would probably be a reduction in PERS. And so when Carol and I talked about this, we essentially said, let's, rather than spend that money or try to do that, let's just set it aside. Because what we do know is that probably at some date in the future, they're going to raise that amount. And because, what is it, every 4 years?
Every 2 years.
Every
we
2
get a
years.
rate, and this is year 1 of this cycle.
So let's be ahead of the game.
So we need to keep an eye on that because it could.
Yeah, every odd number year.
Right,
Yeah.
and there is litigation with regard to what the legislature put in place, and so we don't know the results of that either.
The other thing that happens that falls into the question that you're asking, what is happening, cities, counties, school districts, and special districts? Typically, a lot of them did not participate in the state pool. And so PERS over the last several years has been trying to pull a lot of those local governments into the pool in order to spread out the risk. But the setting of the rates, as Carol said, and the actuarial work is all done at the state level. For example, the housing authority, where I stayed out of the PERS, I mean, they were not part of the state pool. They were in PERS, but they were not a part. And the state enticed them to go in under the assurances that their rates wouldn't be any higher. Guess what?
Their rates are high. Well, it's one thing to be subjected to the vagaries of the marketplace. It's another thing to deliberately underfund your obligation. Was my concern, that we would never do that.
So I do have a question, just to be clear. So we pay monthly both parts of the PERS?
The employees pay the 6%.
Right.
So
But we pick that up.
what they call the pickup,
Mhm.
it's a deduction from the employee's salary. So it is paid to PERS, but it's not CRW money.
So the employees here still pay their 6%?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we pay it on behalf of the
Yes,
employees,
right, but it's
a deduction.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
pass-through for us, right?
Yes.
Okay.
When we move to materials and services, we are continuing to track with the budget. We're at about 45.6%. Some areas of interest and or concern, legal expenses are higher than 50% at this point, and not really expected to slow down due to ongoing defense. Water purchases, when we did the budget, we were still operating the well. And after the budget process was done, we took the well offline. So we have bought a higher volume of water from South Fork Water Board. But our agreement with South Fork Water Board is that they will do a true-up at the end of every year. And based on that true-up, we got back, I believe it was $56,000 from last year's rates that came in this year. So our total expenses on the water, the higher volumes have been offset by that true-up credit that we've received. So staff's continuing to watch expenditures closely through year end. We want to make sure that we don't exceed any of our budget appropriations. And overall, we're in good shape. We have spent less than 50% in all of our appropriation categories. So I don't ever want to be too close to that line. So being under 50% now makes me feel comfortable. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
You answered mine. Thank you.
When is the rate that we pay South Fork into for renegotiation?
They should be notifying us this spring, prior to our budget process, but we have not heard from them yet.
They commit to giving us a draft number by March.
Okay.
But contractually, it really isn't due until the end of June.
Yeah. The rate won't go up until July 1st, but we need, it's helpful to know that before we get into the budget.
Yeah, it'd be difficult to produce a valid budget without knowing.
Well, and that's one of the things that we probably need to talk about, commissioners, because this 6% charge, we've been advised that is also going to be assessed against South Fork at the guaranteed minimum rate of $15,000. So, and we can get in that in more discussion when I get into the management report, but it could be compounded. And so that's why I'm going to need some direction, probably in the executive session, because of the nature of that discussion before we get in. And I just passed out a document that we can talk about when I get into the management report.
Is this privileged communication?
That one isn't, no. Okay.
Carol, have you finished?
Yep, that's all I got. Unless there's any other questions.
Okay, I see a hand. Cindy, you want to ask a question, or
Yeah,
you
just-
want to comment?
Just a question, please, sir. I think I heard them say that the water would be available through the pipe on the Carver Bridge towards the end of summer, or is that not what I heard correctly? So it's not gonna be available this year, it will be available how far down the road?
What, phase 3?
Is when the water will be available?
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Basically, basically, the water lines will be, the construction of the water lines will be done by the end of the summer. Sunrise Water Authority will allow us to wet the pipe and test. We don't have water usage rights, wholesale water rights right now. Also, we have not completed the phase 3 work, which connects the bridge down Hatton Road to the water lines, existing water lines. So we have another phase before we actually serve any customers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Moore, can you give your report now?
Yes. In this month's report, I spend quite a bit of time and have included in your packet a lot of information about lack of rainfall and ice in the mountains. And lo and behold, we have plenty of rain, at least so far, and we have ice. But the hydrologists are still telling us that even if we had rain continuously into the summer months, that they expect that we would probably be no greater than about 70% of normal. And so, while I think it's good to have the water, 7-0, I'm sorry.
Best case scenario.
And that's the best case scenario. It looks like it's picking up, but we start from about depending on where you are within the Cascade range, anywhere from 10 to 20% of normal. Before the most recent weather, Mount Ashland was 10% of normal. And so, and for those of you who go further south into Shasta, people have telling me that water is down significantly this year over what it was before. So these are all issues that I think we have to be concerned about, keeping our eyes on. And so, as I indicated, I put in quite a few articles on the water situation. The other item, the next item we have is Judge Jones' decision was upheld by the Court of Appeals, and we have essentially prevailed in that action. As you know, we've had the CRWSC meeting, or the commission meeting. You saw the result of that today with the approval that you had today of the administrative changes in the 190 agreement, and we already talked about the insurance issue related there too. I did attend the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce Cities Luncheon. This was really a report out of the mayors of the various jurisdictions within the North Clackamas area. It was well attended, over 350 people were there, and they held it at the Monarch down in the lower section there, and it was completely full. We heard from Happy Valley. They advised Mayor DeReamer that they are continuing their march to the river, as she calls it, in terms of annexation. She advised that they're doing that by petition, which I think is probably smart on their part, and what that means is that they're waiting for the parties to come to them to request annexation. And I personally believe it's because they've got some pretty large players between them and the river, i.e. Safeway, Fred Meyer's, that probably would want to have somebody kiss the rain, I guess, before somebody decides that they're going to go through and annex them. Mayor Byers of Gladstone, and she indicated that she intends to run for re-election. Mayor Byers of Gladstone says that they're working on their water and sewer master plan. They are hoping to encourage more light industrial and small businesses to come into their town. And I guess he's been around for, what, 30 years?
Forever.
Forever. He indicates that he's going to run for re-election as well. Mayor Ferguson of Milwaukee has indicated that he will not run for re-election. There was an article, I guess, in Wednesday's Clackamas Review, and indicating personal reasons why he's not going to run. They're trying to get a bond measure passed to raise additional revenues, and they too are looking to encourage more light industrial development within their city. They have had quite a bit of staff turnover in the city of Milwaukee. I think they even had an outside auditor come in to investigate and found that there was nothing untoward that was going on. It's just that it's a smaller town, and I think there were some references to the salaries not being where they should be, and some of the contention that came about as a result of the light rail that has caused people to move on. They finally have filled their planning director position, and they too are starting to work like Happy Valley on their UGMAs, Urban Services Agreements. Mayor Neely of Oregon City was there. I haven't verified or validated his numbers here. He advises that the Tri-City Sewer Agency is in the process of raising their fees by 300%. I don't know what to connect that to. I don't know if that's a real number, but that's what he shared with the audience. They are hoping to designate land areas by Clackamas Community College for industrial development. That seems to be part of their planning activity. And they're also working on a master plan for the Willamette Falls area, so that's taken up a lot of their time. Mayor Spennett of Damascus, he shared that he was spending all of his time trying to get the bond measure passed. There's two. One is pro-development and one is pro-environment. He said that he was sponsoring the pro-property rights, and he also indicated that he has filed for re-election as well.
Ken has a question.
That wasn't bonding, it was community plans. You said
Oh
bonding.
yeah, I'm sorry, it is community plans, that's stand corrected. Myself and Commissioner Humbertson and Board President of Sunrise Water Authority, Ernie Platt, and General Manager Wade Hawthorne and myself met with a contingent of Oregon City and South Fork Water Board folks, one being Commissioner Mumm, David Frazier, John Lewis, John Collins, and their respective attorneys who essentially sat in the hallway or someplace. We didn't see them in the meeting for the duration of our meeting. We did not go with attorneys. We didn't need them. And we talked about their issues related to their alleged appeal to the LUBA Commission on the issues related to the 190. We went around the room and everybody kind of stated their position, if you will. We shared with them that our interest was to protect our assets. That's really what we were after. They indicated they basically had, they were operating under the belief, or at least they stated that they were under the belief, that somehow the 190 was a mechanism for CRW to expand into Oregon City's territory. I think I got that right. I still don't know where that comes from. But we clarified and said that was not our intent at all. And the meeting, we then called in the attorneys and the attorneys indicated that they would draft a proposed agreement. It came, obviously, it did not meet the mark. It was, we have now gone through, I just got copies today, and I sent copies to each of you on your computer, and that'll be a subject, that is a privileged document, and it will be the subject of our one of the subjects of our conversation in the executive session. But we probably need to look at that again. I think I've also advised you that we have since heard that, and I think I shared a copy of the presentation that South Fork and their attorney made a presentation to the Westland City Council in a work session. Westland's concerned about the legal fees that South Fork was expending litigating this 190. And unfortunately, the message that was provided to the Westland City Council by the general manager and the attorney was, I don't, it said that the 190 would somehow impair their water rights, and that CRW was trying to get at their water rights. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was a very disingenuous statement. That is an issue that had never, ever been on the table, either during our meeting or the 4 or 5 years prior to that. I think ex-Commissioner Lewis Wolfman and I have made trips to South Fork as well. That's never been our issue. Our issue has been very, very consistent, protecting of our assets so that we don't die the death of 1,000 cuts. And that's really what we're after.
Just a point there, anybody who wants to listen to that audio recording, it's available for the
We're transcribing it now.
But
so
there is you can go and listen to it real
Yeah.
live if you want to. It's public record. And wow.
Don't have to say any more.
Well, the problem is, they don't understand that document right there.
Yeah.
If that document was hanging on the wall in their city council chambers, no, this water right map, if that was hanging in their city council chambers, everything that was said in that meeting, they would have gone, what? There's just no way, they don't line up.
Would they know the difference?
Well,
Did they see it?
that's that part of that education thing I talked about earlier.
We
But that's the crux of the thing.
We have provided that barometer to every general manager in the basin. So it's not for lack of trying,
It's
Even through the central fund down in Portland was provided through the regional water.
RWPC?
Yeah.
You could tell from the audio recording that the two people that are on the South Fork Water Board from Westland don't know anything about that.
Right.
Don't know anything about that. And that's that education piece that is so important, that people understand what the facts are.
I mean, essentially, we couldn't take their water rights if we wanted to.
It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
That's the state function.
We can't use the water we have.
And neither can they. And that was one of the things that they say is, so we've got to do all these things, or we're going to lose all this water. I'm going, boy, you can't use what you got.
So anyway, we met with Clackamas Community College, and we're talked with them about our compensation study, and they're making progress on that. As soon as we get the end product of that, we will probably meet in an executive session with the board to go over that document as well, because it also will be a cornerstone with our upcoming labor negotiations. It seems like we've had a lot of weekend documents come to us. Ms. Campbell received a document from the union wanting to start negotiations, I believe in March. We're not ready for March, but we will be working through that issue, and we'll keep you posted on that. visited Water Resources Division. Because as you know, we have these 2 pending water permits. They're 96 MGD, you know, and so we're talking with them. We met with ODF&W, which is the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and basically the short version of all of those discussions is that the Clackamas River has some real flow issues during the months of August through October. And what ODF&W has said, that any water rights that would further impinge upon those in-stream flows is something that they're going to object to rather strenuously. So as you look at that, and the red line is really the maximum exceedance under, and the state owns that. We've revised this. I have a revised version.
Okay.
Yeah, but the red line is that we've merged the 2 yellow sections there, and all of that is controlled by the state.
Right.
So essentially, all of the money that's being spent on lawyers and litigation is above the red line. Johnson City, you remember that came before the board, and we just kind of asked the question, what's the status of that annexation? Because we kind of did it and kind of left them to their own devices. And we found out that the effective date of the annexation into CRW territory was October 11, 2013. So that's a done deal.
They didn't have to pay us for it either.
Well, we didn't have to pay either, so I mean. And
So are they still just master meter?
yeah, they have a master meter,
Right.
and they're paying the retail rate.
Okay.
And the annexation was, I don't know if you.
Yeah, well, I read the ballot measure.
Okay.
Right, it was an
Is that their
extraterritorial
request?
service, and,
Yeah.
you know, we had to do it. Several of the board members asked that I give a status report on legal expenditures, and so I have. We have spent $270,162.95.
Can you repeat that for me?
$270,162.95. 54,000 of that is covered under the retainer provision. And everything else has been to defend the lawsuits that have been filed against the agency by various parties. And so that's for the calendar year of 2013. Okay.
And
And
that's,
it continues.
and that's as of December 3rd.
Yes.
And it's clear that that 215,000 is clearly because we have to defend. We are not initiating any lawsuits at this
No,
point in time.
no.
We are simply having to defend. So those individuals are costing this district $215,000.
And we talked about the work session. This is the last item that I have in my report. We had talked about the 25th, and I think we're saying that 4 or 5, Commissioner McNeil, I couldn't remember the time that you had indicated works best for you for the work session.
4:30.
4:30. Now, the Chairman, President Soa had talked about maybe piggybacking onto the other session.
Fine, me.
The only thing that we have there is the letter that I have provided you is that we're in the penalty period of Oregon City's 6% right-of-way fee, and I need some guidance on that. So that's the only thing we have. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. We're now at the place where we have final public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to test? Seeing none, we'll move on then to commission business. covered that, about what's coming up. Just need to remind you to get your expense reports in on time. Anything else?
I just, for calendar purposes, are we going to confirm that on the 25th at 4:30 PM, we have a work session? Is that confirmed with all members?
The 25th.
Yes, so Tuesday the 25th at 4:30 PM. Okay? And then you had indicated the necessity of a more emergent executive session than the 25th.
No,
Can you live with the 25th?
yes, as long as we know, based upon the letter, that the clock is ticking. But I don't think it's gonna, what do they say, $100? We just got this, and so,
You
Oh, there's
think
something
that
on the back.
we need?
yeah, it says, OCMC section of the code provides for a penalty of not less than $100 or more, nor more than $1,000 per day for each day the violation exists, beginning February 5th.
So what is it?
Huh?
So what is it? $100 or $1,000?
They don't say.
That's up to them.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And then, are you saying that we need an executive session early next week?
Unless we're willing to wait until the 25th. I mean, and to me, that's not a problem, but I think I just want the board to be aware that we have a clock running here.
So,
The other issues related to that, because I don't want to get too much into the executive session part of it, but in order to comply with this ordinance, there's going to be some administrative charges to CRW. And so one of the questions on the table is, do we want to countercharge for those administrative costs? Because essentially, we're going to be probably looking at a bifurcated bill for those people who reside in Oregon City, where the fee doesn't affect them, versus some other mechanism. So, and I think Carol's in the process now trying to figure out what those administrative costs are. It could be 6%, but that's something that we need to talk about.
Or $15,000.
Huh?
Or $15,000.
It sounds to me like you're wanting an executive session next week, early next week.
Yeah.
17th is President's Day,
Right, we're closed that day.
so we're looking at the 18th, 19th, the evening of the 20th. Speaking for myself, because I'll be going to the budget workshop at Clackamas College,
Mhm.
and then the 21st.
Yeah, so we can do it then as well. I just got this stuff today, so I didn't think through the fine or the penalty.
but wait a second. If we don't know, this is crazy. I mean, Larry, this is just crazy. If it's $100, it's no big deal. If it's $1,000 a day, it's a whole different game. I've never seen anything as weird as this. I mean, who assesses the fee?
Well, the fee is structured the same way. We don't know yet. And so we believe that it's gonna be $15,000, but we can't be guaranteed that, because what they told us, Bob, I think, is that they needed to hire somebody first.
And to use your expression, they are way out over their skis on this one,
Yeah.
but we need to be able to respond.
So back to the penalty and the executive session. They may not assess any penalty.
That's possible.
Yeah, okay. So it could be anywhere between 0 and 1,000
Right.
Per day.
per day.
It's just interesting that this letter follows the letter that they sent in response to President Sola's letter by days.
I have a question. Do you know if Environmental Services County, what their situation is with regard to this?
I talked to Mike,
Yeah.
and what he told me was that they too were sitting, trying to figure out which number they needed to react to. They don't know. And if it's 15,000, he said they probably won't object. but he said the impact to them is $400,000. And so if it's $400,000, they're probably gonna object, you know, and so essentially, they have gotten their process out in front of their ability and any decisions related to how they're going to assess these fees or costs. Bob, Bob's been working with staff on kind of a more day-to-day basis.
About when the first ruling came out, we did a quick, how many customers, how much pipe we had inside the city limits, and it came out with 6% of gross revenue, that amount, it came below the minimum 15,000. So at that time, I stopped doing any more calculating to firm it up exactly until some of these questions through the board with Oregon City was determined which way we were gonna go. Right now, based on the preliminary numbers, my understanding of the ordinance, that there's a minimum $15,000 based on our pipe link within the district or inside the city limits.
Yeah, so.
And right now, what, probably talk with Mr. Moore tomorrow about, we probably should prepare the basic numbers, get the registration ready, so when you make a decision that we're ready to go. I can see us working on that here next.
Yeah, we also have the, kind of like bouncing this back and forth, but we also have some advice from our council saying they're not sure that this fee is even legal. And so.
I would hope not.
Well, there's a case in Southern Oregon where this issue is being litigated as we speak. So Commissioner Hummerson was there when I raised that during our meeting. And the city manager told me I was wrong, that this was settled law. And so,
It's not settled law.
So it's complicated. I don't want to make light of it. I mean, it's just that it seems like all these roads are converging at the same time without any information. And because I've also talked to John Collins at Southport, he will probably be assessed $15,000 as well.
Wait a second.
Huh?
Wait, it says, if you read the bottom two lines, please visit the above link to obtain application. The application must be received by the city within 10 days of this date, from the date of this letter, to avoid formal enforcement action.
So that's 21st.
That's the 21st.
That's good.
Which goes to where I was going. Given the uncertainty of how much the fine could be, whether it's $100 a day or $1,000 a day, it seems to me that an executive session on the 18th is probably the way to go, because staff need to know which direction the board's going to want to go as quickly as possible.
Right, because, you know, one thing we could do is just pay a filing fee. Our question is, if you do that, are you essentially agreeing, you know, to pay whatever subsequent fee that might come along? The other issue has to do with if South Fork is in the same situation we are, and we think they are, they're gonna get assessed a $15,000 minimum. That's gonna be an embedded cost in our water purchase rates. And because we have some distribution costs inside of Oregon City, and because Oregon City is also going to be assessing its own utilities, this dollar amount, that will be an embedded cost as well. So, as Mr. George has just said, we have calculated our base cost, or the base impact of this assessment at about $5,000, so because we don't rise to the next hurdle, we will by default pay 15 under the proposed process that they put in place. So all of this stuff is open.
So here's the question. Will you have all the information, everything we need to know to make a decision on the 18th?
We don't know, because
If you will.
the response to President Soa's letter from the city manager was essentially, I guess, a polite term, it was a kiss-off letter.
Yeah.
That basically said, if you don't like it.
Yeah, it was. I should like that.
Can we submit an application or fill out the application and accompany it with a letter that says we're submitting under duress?
Yeah, we can do
don't
that.
necessarily agree that this is a possibility, that this will continue on.
We can submit an application under protest,
There you go.
you know, and that, I've been told might help. You know, it's just that I hate to bring so much uninformation to the board.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the position we're in at this point, because they haven't provided anything other than that. And I thought that President Soa's letter was an attempt to at least throw out an olive branch in terms of let's sit down and talk, and that was rejected as well.
That response was ugly.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't think you're gonna have enough information on the 18th and the having the closed session on the 25th
Yeah.
after the work session probably makes the most sense.
Well, will we have any more information then?
I don't think so.
But
But I like
think
your
we
idea
should-
of filling out the application.
Yeah, I think we should do that under protest because.
And run it
that
by
we-
Dean and make sure we haven't given the farm away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
If
do
that's
that.
okay, Larry? Larry gives me the look.
Nothing Gordon City does is okay with me.
That said, we still need to pick a date and time for the executive
So you
session.
have two things, is what do you want me to do in the interim, and a date and time for the decision.
Does somebody need to make a motion, or?
I think we ought to schedule that executive session as soon as possible.
Well, then the closest date is the 18th.
Okay.
That's Tuesday, the 18th?
Yeah, I don't have my calendar with me.
I don't know. I have to check.
I have to look at my calendar, but the.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's going on the 18th?
I was just going to comment that the under protest is something that many of the communication companies have done with regard to city franchise fees for many years, because there's continuing litigation regarding the methodology of charging those franchise fees. So, you know, they actually put the notice on every payment that they make to the cities of the franchise fees.
West Lynn's doing that too.
I think we ought to wait to file anything until after our executive session.
So tentatively, are we talking about the 18th at 6 PM?
That keeps us-
Tentatively
That
for
keeps us
executive
inside
session?
the 10 days, so, yeah.
That's tentative, and you'll call to confirm?
Right.
After you, okay.
Can we go earlier on the 18th,
Can you?
4:30?
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Yeah.
4:30.
I'll see, I'll email you tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
It's gonna be a question.
Anything else? Not, we're standing adjourned.